When I first met Daniel, I never thought he'd matter this much. He was just another face in a crowded office, confident, calm, unreadable. The kind of person who never seems to need anyone. But somehow he noticed me. Not in a way that made me uncomfortable, more like he saw past the version of myself I showed everyone else. At first we were just coworkers, two people sharing coffee breaks, late meetings, tired jokes. Then it became friendship, the kind that sneaks up on you slowly until it's the only part of your day that feels real. We used to say we were safe. That's what we called it, safe, because we'd drawn the line. No feelings, no complications, just connection. The kind that doesn't need to be explained. But lines have a way of blurring when you start caring too much. And sometimes the smallest moments change everything. It started with the little things, a hand brushing mine when he passed me a file, a glance that lasted a second too long, that quiet kind of attention that doesn't ask for anything, but leaves you wanting something you can't define. There were days when the air between us felt charged, like the space itself had a heartbeat, and neither of us wanted to admit that we could feel it. One night after work, we stayed late. The office was empty, just the low hum of the lights and the city breathing outside. He leaned against my desk, sleeves rolled up, eyes soft but distant, like he was holding back a thought he didn't trust himself to say. I remember laughing at something small, and for a second, his expression changed, like he'd forgotten we weren't supposed to look at each other that way. It wasn't what he said, it was what he didn't. The silence that stretched between us felt heavier than any conversation we'd ever had. That's when we made the rule. No lines crossed. No late nights. No what-ifs. We promised ourselves it would stay professional, that we wouldn't risk something we couldn't take back. And for a while, we meant it. We were good at pretending, good at playing the part of two people who didn't want more. But pretending not to feel something doesn't make it go away. It just makes it grow quietly, until one night you stop pretending. I didn't know it yet, but that night, the one where everything changed, had already begun. The days that followed felt different. We didn't talk about the rule anymore, but somehow it was always there, like an invisible line drawn across every word, every look, every moment. We went on like nothing had changed. Meetings, deadlines, coffee breaks, but there was something in the way we moved around each other, a quiet awareness neither of us dared to name. There were moments when I'd catch him watching me, just long enough for it to mean something. And when our eyes met, it felt like the world paused, like everything else faded into the background. It wasn't about what was said, it was about what was held back. And sometimes, holding back feels louder than speaking. One evening, the office lights flickered, a storm building outside. Most people had already gone home, but we stayed behind, finishing the kind of work that didn't really matter. The rain tapped against the glass. The air smelled of dust and electricity. He walked past my desk, and the faint brush of his sleeve against my arm sent a wave of something through me, something warm, confusing, and dangerous. He stopped by the window, hands in his pockets, watching the city blur behind the rain. There was a stillness about him, a calm that made everything around him feel quieter. "Do you ever feel like we're living the same day over and over?" he said. I smiled softly. Maybe we are. He turned to me, and for the first time he didn't look away. The space between us felt smaller than it had ever been, closer. He didn't move, but I could feel the weight of his presence, the warmth that reached me before his words ever could. We didn't speak after that. The storm outside grew louder, and inside, silence became its own kind of thunder. He walked over to my desk, slowly, not with purpose, but with hesitation. like he was crossing a line we'd drawn together. For a moment, he stood close enough that I could feel his breath mix with mine, the kind of closeness that feels like a question waiting for someone to answer. Then, just as suddenly, he stepped back, as if the air between us had burned. "See you tomorrow," he said. His voice was steady, but his eyes weren't. And as the door closed behind him, I realized tomorrow would never feel the same again. That night wasn't supposed to happen. It wasn't planned or expected. It just unfolded, the way some moments do when time decides to stop behaving. The storm hadn't passed. The city outside was still soaked in rain and noise, but the office felt strangely quiet, like we were standing inside the eye of something neither of us could name. I had stayed later than I meant to. The glow of my screen was the only light left, soft and cold against the warmth of the room. Then I heard the door, his footsteps, slow, careful. He didn't have to say anything. I knew why he was there. Or maybe I just needed to believe that he didn't come back for no reason. He stopped near my desk, hands in his pockets, eyes darker than usual. There was a quiet tension in the air, the kind that makes every sound sharper, the hum of the lights, the rhythm of your own breathing. We didn't speak. There wasn't anything left to say. He leaned against the edge of the desk, close, too close. Close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating off him, the steady calm that always seemed to hold me together and unravel me all at once. Something about the silence made it heavier, the kind of silence that doesn't need words to be understood. He reached for a folder on the table, a meaningless excuse to move, and for a moment, his hand brushed mine. It wasn't much, just contact, fleeting, light, but it felt like everything inside me reacted at once. I didn't pull away, neither did he. The lights flickered again. Outside, thunder rolled through the sky, long, low, and distant. He looked at me, and in that second, the space between us disappeared, not because we moved, but because we stopped pretending it was there. It wasn't about words anymore. It wasn't even about choice. It was about that quiet kind of surrender that happens when you realize you've already crossed the line, long before you ever meant to. For a long moment, we just stood there, two people caught between what they wanted and what they were afraid of losing. The storm outside finally began to fade, but inside, something new had started, something we both knew we couldn't take back. Morning came quietly, the kind of morning that doesn't announce itself, just light creeping through half-closed blinds, turning the room gold and gray at the same time. The storm was gone, but its echo was still there, in the air, in the silence, in the space between us. I remember opening my eyes, and for a moment I forgot where I was, forgot the weight of what had happened. Everything felt still, suspended. He was there, not saying a word, his gaze soft, unreadable, like he was searching for a version of this that made sense. We didn't speak. There was nothing to fix, and yet everything had changed. I sat up, the room filled with the sound of quiet breaths, his and mine, the kind that don't belong to strangers anymore, but don't belong to something defined either. He smiled, a small, careful smile, the kind that hides more than it reveals. Then he said, almost whispering, "You okay?" I nodded, because I was, and I wasn't. Outside, the city was already awake. Cars, people, the world pretending it hadn't paused for us. Inside, time still felt slower, like it was watching us decide what to do next. He reached for his jacket. Our eyes met again, and I could tell he wanted to say something but didn't. Maybe we both knew words would only make it harder. When he left, I stayed by the window for a while. The sky was still heavy with clouds, but there was sunlight trying to push through. Soft, persistent, quiet. And that's when I realized, sometimes you don't regret the moment that changes everything. You just learn to live with it. We told ourselves it was just one night, that we'd go back to normal, that we could pretend it didn't mean anything. But some rules, once broken, can't be rewritten. And even now, when I see him across the office and we smile like nothing ever happened, I still feel that night living quietly between us.